We're creating a bunch of dummies. I hate to be so blunt. The average child stays in front of an electronic device now for 7.5 hours per day. 7.5 hours. That's their Game Boys and DVDs and computers and everything else. What happened when you guys were growing up? Where were you? You were outside, right? Didn't say what you were doing, but you were outside. Won't go there. It is the critical mind of tomorrow. The Taken is building a little tree fort and can't get the truss system up right. And they fall out of the tree fort and they hurt themselves. And they say, oh, I get it now and I need to work on this. Well, that's kind of cool. You're thinking, you're playing, you're learning, you're understanding your friends and interaction. You're developing into a person, into a critical mind that is the next business mind of tomorrow. How far can you get with Facebook? And I've got my Facebook account, so how far can you get with Facebook and Game Boy and DVDs and Game Boy 2s? You can get some really good thumb skills, and you may get a few computer skills along the way, but what does that mean? So we need to make some proper decisions here. So let's talk about our environment, Colorado Springs. Just a quick survey. 2 questions I'll ask. One is, let's just do it this way maybe. How many people in here think that we have a sustainable community? Raise your hand. All right. We got a few. How many people think that we don't have a sustainable community? So recently, people look at us, and I think we're known sometimes for being sustainable just by the fact that we live in a beautiful area. I've got clean water to drink, and we do. We've got wonderful water here. I've got great, air to breathe. I could look up at Pikes Peak, go around this window, so if you guys can see it. I could look at Pikes Peak. I never see smog. I never see smoke. So I'm not too worried about it. But the reality is, there's been some national surveys out, and this was out in last September, and we've been working with this group. Sustain Lane, which is an independent group out of California, ranks the top 50 cities in the United States. And what they found out was Colorado Springs dropped in 1 year from 26th place out of 50 to 43rd in 1 year. And I can send you guys some information. We can give the details about all the ranking scales they use. But it gets with green economy, it gets natural resource usage, it gets to metro transit ridership, it gets to a lot of different factors. And where we ranked the best was the most interesting to me, because we ranked the best on natural disaster risk. Like we have any control over that. And there's a lot of things we don't have control over. One of those is our water supply. We can't control the fact we can't just offset and bring in some new water, so we ranked a little lower on this one. We're poor in the fact that Fountain Creek, the creek that is spitting distance, one of these 2 directions, I think it's back on the back side of the building here, is above E. coli standards 68% of the time, according to the EPA, out of the 6 warm months out of the year. So maybe some of those people from Pueblo understand why they're a little upset if we're E. coli standards, which is stream and waters coming from here, exceed EPA standards 68% of the time. And this is kind of our iconic water here in the West. So what's changing? And this is for you and your business. This is for you and your community. Manufacturing trends, consumer trends, government regulations, cost of goods, cost of natural resources, illnesses, healthcare costs. I think if we all collaboratively sat down, we could really make this list very long. But you see the overarching theme. There's a lot of things changing in your business. You have to adapt. The Wall Street Journal came out not too long ago, it was actually a few months ago, and there's a whole article about economics. It's talking about how our environment ties directly back with our economics. We've separated those for too long. And that a smart, sustainable strategy is a smart business strategy. Nicholas Stern, who is an economist does a lot of work with the United Nations and some other groups, doesn't talk about business. He talks about the environment and its effect on business. So really understanding those two are directly tied. In the 21st century, there will be significant fundamental changes, not just to how we do business, but what types of businesses will prevail and thrive. Challenge any of you to go to any newsstand and take a look. And you will see a whole plethora of magazines and articles, very credible magazines and articles, talking about the environment as it relates back to our economy. Again, just very simply, natural resources. I was talking to VinCat a little earlier, and it reminded me of one fact that is becoming more apparent. I used VinCat as an example. You take two people, you take them to Memorial Hospital. Let's say they're identical people for all concerned purposes. You take their appendix out, you put them in the hospital. You give one with a view of Pikes Peak and natural light coming into their room. The other, you put in the middle of the hospital somewhere with artificial light and no views or anything else. The New England Journal of Medicine says the person with the natural light shining into the room heals approximately 18% faster. And a lot of people say, wow, yeah, that kind of makes sense. But if we put that into practice, does that 18% time reduction in the hospital for healing attribute to healthcare cost? Yes, it does. So we understand now, just very simplistically, the natural world as it relates back to cost and quality of life. So sustainability. What is sustainability? Have you guys thought about this for your business? Because it is an important term. It's going to become even more important. And I think you could define it in a lot of different ways. One person, I did a group interview with a bunch of CEOs. One was a very small company owner. And he says sustainability meant for him, for his business, that he wanted to get rid of the cancer that he had. He had done a powder coating and metal processing plant. And he interacted for so many years with all the chemicals, and he was very much convinced that all those chemicals is what caused his cancer, and that he wanted to survive and be there for his children and his grandchildren. That was his business definition for sustainability. Another person came up and said it was to make sure his business was around for the next 100 years. And that was understanding all the outside factors with natural resources and everything else and the regulations that were coming in. But sustainability was, I want my business around for the next 100 years. Third person I was talking to, and I can actually use his name, it's Roger McFadden, and Roger is the CEO of Corporate Express. So they own a lot of different companies, including Staples. And Roger's, I thought, was the most interesting. So Roger's the CEO of a $1 billion corporation. And what he said was, I want to leave the world a better place for my two granddaughters. And I said, Roger, I'm asking for a business definition. He's like, that is my business definition. Sustainability means not abusing something today that is negatively impacting somebody tomorrow. So we're taking resources and using things. We need to understand that. We need to ask the tough questions. We need to understand why childhood is different. And going back to the childhood, one generation. Like I said, we're talking about the changes and things that we're doing as kids. That's all in one generation. So it's not a large time frame, and we don't understand the consequences of some of these things. So is it business as usual? No, it's not. What does this mean? It's not about saving money, it's about making money. We can get overwhelmed with facts all the time. And it can be a little intimidating, and it can be controversial. And when we really get down to sustainability, if you really start thinking about sustainability, preserving, cutting costs, doing things that you should be doing anyway because they're good business choices, there's no negative side to sustainability. It's not a race issue, it's not a gender issue, it's not a political issue. It's about having good business practices. It is an equation of supply and demand. And I'll read the caption at the bottom here. On the picture here, there's an old man laying in bed on his deathbed, and his wife is next to him. And he says, I should have bought more crap. Kind of interesting, isn't it? You go to the store, you understand, you say, great, oh, that's really cool, I need to buy this. And we talk about reducing, reusing, and recycling. The first two are the most important, reducing and reusing, versus recycling, because at times that could be a little bit of a controversial issue as well. So therefore, we need to educate ourselves and understand that process of where does our resources come from.